Hey everyone, welcome back, and in this video we're gonna have a look at how to create melodies and motifs using intervals. So here I've been playing all the intervals from the minor second all the way up to the perfect octave, and I've been making small themes that will kind of show you a little bit how melodies might sound when I've been using different intervals. When it comes to intervals, we have both major intervals, minor intervals, and perfect intervals. And just as with scales, minor intervals tend to sound a bit more sad, while major intervals tend to sound a little bit more uplifting and happy and bright, for example. Let's just get into it and start looking at how to create melodies with different intervals. So the first one we're going to look at is the minor second, which tends to be a really kind of evil, ominous, and dark sounding interval. Most famous maybe in Jaws, and this is the interval. So it's really effective in portraying things like danger. And let's just listen to the interval itself first. So there you have it. And what I've been doing is I've been creating a little melody here in Violins and Choirs that is an example of something that you can make with intervals. So that's the minor second, and as we go through the intervals, feel free to kind of write down what you get out of the intervals, what kind of emotion they express to you. So I'm gonna try not to paint too many things in your head in terms of the emotion they portray, and rather just have you write down what they make you feel like, how they make you feel, because that's the most important thing when you're gonna make music on your own. Because it doesn't really matter what I think or what they make me feel like, because when you're making music, you need to choose the intervals and choose the scales based on what and how they make you feel. So let's move on to the the major second, which is like this. And this interval is not that much used as a defining interval because it's kind of neutral, and it's usually more used as a passing note, for example, to the third. But let's take an example here again and listen to the interval isolated first. And now a little melody I made. And what's important to note when it comes to intervals here is that the emotions the intervals portray are very, very dependent on the context they are used in and the harmonies underlying the interval. For example, a minor third, which you're going to look at next, which usually sound fairly sad. If it's used in on the top of a major chord, for example, like this chord. Let me get a piano here to show you what I mean. Then it sounds fairly different than if it's used with a D minor chord. So context is really important when it comes to intervals. And this is why in this video I've only been recording themes that are playing the intervals from the root note D. And I've also made a little drone in pads that's just keeping a low D while the melodies based on the intervals are playing, so you can hear the interval in its purest form without being colored by the choice of harmony. But harmony is something we're going to look at in later videos, so now let's stick purely to the intervals. Let's head into the minor third. So this is a minor interval, and it is the interval that is the base of the minor chord. So this is very effective for more sad and emotional melodies. Let's listen to what I played with it. If you get some kind of specific feeling from this interval, feel free to write it down, and if you want to share it with the others in the comment field. Let's move on and listen to the major third. And this is an interval that is the foundation of the major chord. Let's listen to the melody I made for it. That's the major third. Next up, we have the perfect fourth, which sounds pretty much like this. And as you might be able to hear, compared to the minor and major third, it is not as clearly defined in terms of emotion. At least it's more transparent, it's more balanced. So it doesn't have such a clear, sad or happy emotion. Let's listen to the theme I made for it. And that's the perfect fourth. Now we're going to move over to the tritone interval, the augmented fourth or diminished fifth, depending on how you see it. It's basically the same note. Now this one is a lot more dark and very dissonant, so it's pretty fitting for darker, scary themes. Let's listen to it. Now this interval is famous from, for example, West Side Story. Or The Simpsons. And so on. So let's listen to the little theme I made from it and try to note how it makes you feel. So this is a fairly dissonant interval. And depending on the context you use it in, it might give off a little kind of fantasy, magical, mystical vibe. Let's move up, and we're gonna get to the perfect fifth, which again is a fairly transparent interval, but it's probably, to me, the most heroic interval you can possibly find, and is famous, for example, from the Star Wars theme. And so on. So let's have a listen to the little theme I made for it here. And this is a theme that's very, in film scores, you've probably heard like that interval in horns 1,000 times.